Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of the Late Night Lake Show podcast powered by 19 Media Group. It is your host, Ricky. We just wrapped up our interview with Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype. We're going to throw you guys to that in 1 second. Just had to do a redo of the intro. Got a little choppy with the audio, but it's all good. Mike was a fantastic interview breaking down all of the latest and greatest news in the NBA world. We talked Utah Jazz and what they're doing with their overcrowded roster. We talked the Indiana Pacers and how they're going to raise their salary cap to meet the minimum. Of course, we had to tie it all into our Los Angeles Lakers and figure out how this could benefit us. And then Mike really dives into his bread and butter, which is the Brooklyn Nets and the crazy-ass offseason that they had. So without further ado, our interview with Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype. Enjoy.
I think for the Knicks, the biggest difference between the Knicks and the Cavaliers in my thought process was for the Knicks, if they would have gave up those unprotected picks, they didn't have the young core that Cleveland had. And in terms of competing, because what I mean by that is like if the Knicks gave up those unprotected picks and it was all three that Utah wanted, then I think with Donovan Mitchell, they would have been maybe like a 6th seed or something like that. With Cleveland, I could see them being better than that. I could see them being the 4th seed if everything clicks right. And they have a young, sustained core for a while. With the Knicks, you weren't going to get off Julius Randle. Utah didn't want him. You weren't going to – I mean, maybe you could have got off of Fournier, but Utah wasn't trying to take him. They would have tried to flip him in a trade. So for the Knicks – you know, it's always interesting. Like Quentin Grimes became this like sticking point. And I think of Quentin Grimes and I'm like, he's a nice player. But you think about trades that never happened in the past. Like remember when the Cleveland Cavaliers didn't trade J.J. Hickson to the Suns for like Amari Stoudemire?
Man, I'll never forget it.
And like the Knicks acquiring Carmelo Anthony almost got held up because of Timothy Mozgov. Like sometimes it's like executives – you know, I know every exec wants to win the trade on paper and stuff, but sometimes it's like we get a little too much of like a big brain logic, and it's really not that complicated. That's not moving. If that's the deterrent of a deal, what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? So for the Knicks,
we know what you're saying. We know that very well here in Lakerland.
So for like Quentin Grimes, like that, I get that it was like a point of contention, but it's like, well, if you're not moving Fournier, you playing Quentin Grimes? You're going to start Quentin Grimes? Like, to me, that – I don't know. And then, like, you know, Obi Toppin, I like Obi Toppin. But is Obi Toppin going to play when Julius Randle's there and signs his extension? How much is he going to play?
Yeah.
Okay? So, I just felt like – and everybody around the league, and including the Knicks, by the way, they thought they had all the assets to get it done. But I think it just got to a point where – it was very close. There was a little haggling over some minor things, and those minor things became big things that ultimately deterred the deal. Kobe Altman in Cleveland is close with Justin Zanuck. Once the Knicks pull out and give R.J. Barrett this extension, Kobe's like, I got to at least see like now it's game on for everybody at that point. Because if you're Utah – they had already gotten rid of Gobert. They were entering a rebuild. Whether they said it or not, they wanted to. And getting rid of Donovan Mitchell was the best way they were going to improve their own draft pick. You know, you could try to replace one Frenchman with another, go from Rudy Gobert to Victor Wembanyama. I did a mock draft on that as well. Just saying, not exactly rocket science here. And now, like Danny Ainge has got more picks in the cupboard than Sam Presti, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
But, so for Cleveland then, it was very simple. You got a guy 3 years under contract, 25, lines up very well with your other young core and 3 other potential all-stars in Darius Garland, who's already been one, Jared Allen, who's been one, and Evan Mobley, who's going to be one. I love what they did. Because if you're Cleveland, you're not getting a guy in free agency. That's how you got to get a star like that. You got to trade for him. It's almost like when Oklahoma City traded for Paul George. Same kind of concept for those smaller mid-market-ish teams. So, yeah, I love it for Cleveland. For the Knicks, I get it. Like, now you got all these picks. You can still go into the market. I actually recorded a Knicks podcast with my guy, Stephen Bondi, and, there was some speculation about, I think it was from Mark Berman at the New York Post first about, maybe they'll go after Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And it's like, you think Danny Ainge wanted picks? What do you think Sam Presti would want?
Right.
And they just signed him to an extension. It's like the NBA has become like, as the world turns, the soap opera. It never ends.
Never, ever ending. And somehow, it seems like the past couple of seasons, our Los Angeles Lakers have been stuck as the heel in a lot of these off-season, unravelings and these dramas that unfold. You go back, we are 3 years in a row now of the Lakers potentially, or the Lakers actually revamping their entire roster in the likeness. And this is 2 out of 3 years now that they've gone big name star hunting.
Shout out to Alex Caruso and JaVale McGee. Never forget.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So there's obviously a team in the league that has been heavily linked the past month to the Lakers and any potential Russell Westbrook move or dealing and trade and buyout or whatever the situation. So there's one thread left, with weeks to go to training camp. Mike kind of wanted to tap into, after Utah's made all of these transactions this summer, also making a deal with the Lakers already. Can you kind of just walk us through where they're sitting right now with the war chest of draft picks, but also an overcrowded roster where they gotta flip a couple players over there?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the draft, Utah is chilling. Like, they're trying to just stockpile more for down the road. Bojan Bogdanovic is certainly available on the market. Jordan Clarkson, you've got Mike Conley, Rudy Gay. These are all Malik Beasley. These are all guys that they can move. And I do expect them I would expect them to try to get something done before the season. For the same reason I said that they should try to move Donovan Mitchell. You improve your own draft pick with, the lesser talent that's there. Bojan's going to be a free agent. So if you're not bringing him back, move him now. You're not going to there's never a better time where you're going to get more. Mike Conley, really good point guard, nice role player. Don't think he moves the needle on a rebuilding team. He's got money owed next year. Might be tough to move him, but if you can, you do it. Rudy Gay, an older veteran. Malik Beasley, young guy, could have some upside still, but I don't know if he's in their plans like that. I think when it comes to the Lakers in particular, the Pat Bev, Talen Horton, Tucker, and Stanley Johnson trade was interesting to me because with Indiana, and I had reported this on HoopsHype, but Indiana wanted to try to get Talen Horton Tucker in the Russell Westbrook trade in addition to the picks, and have the Lakers try to take Daniel Tice, who doesn't fit their kind of rebuilding plan. And Daniel Tice is a guy that would be best served on a playoff team. So I could see why they would maybe want to try to get LA to do that, but they didn't think that was fair to give up him, referring to Talen Horton Tucker as far as that, and really go all in on that just to get, Russ to the Utah Jazz for Bojan Bogdanovic. My thing has always been, if they're going to do a deal where they end up giving multiple firsts, whether they're protected or not, go do the Indiana trade for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. Go get a shooter, go get a shot blocker, a guy that could stretch the floor. I think if your mentality is worried about trying to be the best team you can be this season, that to me is clearly the better move. Unless you can get Bogdanovic from Utah for less than 2 unprotected first-round picks, then maybe it's a different conversation. But any team I've talked to around the league is sniffing like a German shepherd for those 2 first-round picks from the Lakers. So it's about protections and, unprotected picks. That's what it's all coming down to, and the Lakers' appetite to do that. If they go into the season with Russ and Pat Bev and LeBron and AD, I think it's interesting because
I like it. Interesting.
I don't know. I know the Italians, maybe they forgive, but they never forget. I don't know if somebody tried to take out mine, I'd be a little peeved. But, they can all act like they're honky-dory and stuff, but I just laugh at the thought of Pat Bev telling, Westbrook, yo, you missed your assignment, and the quick snapback from Russ, or let alone Pat telling, LeBron, AD, anybody. Like, I love Pat Bev. I think he's had a remarkable career for a guy that started, overseas and, really became a defender and a veteran role player when he didn't have the athletic ability or the height, the size. Like, it's all heart and work. I respect Pat a lot. I just think it was funny when it was like, you get to, I forgot who asked him. Maybe it was like Lakers. It was after his media availability, and somebody was like, well, how do you feel about getting to play with LeBron and AD? Well, actually, they get to play with me because I made the playoffs last year.
Incredible.
And he's not playing. Like, he's dead. He's
no.
dead serious.
Oh, yeah.
About
No.
it.
There's a truth. There's a little bit of truth in every joke, for sure.
That's good. Well, I'm glad that you brought up Indiana, because actually Indiana's an interesting talking point here. So currently they have about 93 million in cap space, or sorry, not cap space, cap used. And, they got to use about 80% of the given cap, which is roughly about 111 million. So what is their plan? Because they still have some empty space they got to fill and not a lot of time left to fill it. So what do you think their plan is on for the rest of the offseason ahead?
I mean, when you talk to other executives around the league, they've all gotten the sense that Indiana and San Antonio are two teams that are going to try to use their cap space to absorb contracts and to get future draft pick compensation for down the road that they could flip for assets, which is one of the reasons why a lot of talk had been centered on Indiana trying to get Russell Westbrook. Right. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Laker fans will talk to you about Russell Westbrook, the player, but the Pacers will look at Russell Westbrook's contract, and a lot of teams would say, well, 47 means a lot of money, but if I can get 2 first-round picks and I got to spend the money anyway and I got cap space, it's like buying the picks.
Yeah.
Indiana's in purgatory. I feel like they're always too good to be
I
a
love
top
it now.
5 pick.
Not now, though, baby. To me,
they're
I'm looking
bottling
at
out.
them, and it's like they're like the Titanic. They are sinking.
Okay.
They are, because I like Tyrese Halliburton. I do. I think he's a good player. They got Ben Mathurin. I think he'll be cool as well. But this is the first time I feel like Indiana has a team where it's like they could actually be a really high lottery team, Ricky. Like, you touched on it. They're not. Right. They've always been in this like middle, treading water. We're good. We're not bad. It's like, I don't know. They were never. They were just stuck in the middle. And I don't know. You call it like purgatory. I just like, I call it maybe more the abyss, because I think some mind being in that. But to me, it's either go big or go home and push the chips in the center of the table, which is why I like what Cleveland did, for example, like going all in and really just letting it ride and seeing what happens, even whether Donovan Mitchell leaves or not. Like, at a certain point, a lot of these teams always want to wait for the right opportunity, and it never comes. Like, you look at Utah, they had the same core and they plateaued. There was never like an extra all-in move. You got to capitalize at some points.
Which is fair, yeah. It's kind of shocking, because I think a lot of people thought once Brogdon was traded that Indiana was going straight into fire sale mode. It seems like they pulled back that curtain quite a bit. So, again, yeah, just interested in what's going on here. And like you said, the Lakers trade seemed like that was going to be a thing. They do have salary they need to absorb.
Kwame, I think that was as much the Lakers not wanting to give up the 2 unprotected first in 2027 and 2029. Oh boy. To be honest with you, that's kind of the sense I got from the sticking point. They obviously would try to do multiple second-round picks instead of doing both first. But that's like, how can I put it? It's like, how can I say this? It's like having, I don't know. It's like, would you rather have a $5 bill? Would you rather have like $100 bill or 100 singles? You'd rather have a $100 bill. Yeah. That's what the Indiana Pacers are looking at. Yeah, you may think it amounts to the same, but it don't look the same in the wallet when you flash it. One looks like you're going to the strip club. The other one looks like you're ready to go buy some furniture or something. A little different.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I guess I'm trying to, connect some dots around here, Michael. You brought up 2 teams plus Utah, right? That still got to flip some pieces on their end, a mandatory get rid, trade some players, release some players, whatever they decide to do. And yet here we are, and I think most of Laker Nation, if not 90% of them, have packed their Russell Westbrook is going to be traded this offseason bag and started heading down the railroad like a hobo. Like we are at about as far into the offseason as you can get without a move. So, just from what you're hearing and what you've seen and what you've laid out, we still have 3 teams that could potentially be a partner in this. What is your sense right now on Russ and the Lakers and their future together?
I mean, they're acting like they're all going to end up coming back. And I think at this point, it's really in the Lakers' hands. If they want to give up the 2 first-round picks, Russell Westbrook could be moved. I believe that. I really do. But I don't get the sense they want to. This is what I would also say, and I kind of touched on this on Lakers Spaces for those who maybe missed that episode. Ironically, I was in Atlantic City on a little bit of some downtime, but I think I touched on it with Guru and Stace. And the Lakers, regardless of what happens with Westbrook, like if you keep let's just say you keep Westbrook and that money comes off the books next year, you got to keep an eye on the Lakers for Kyrie Irving. You know that LeBron would like to play with him. And depending on what happens with the Nets, I think the Nets are the team that all eyes are going to be on around the league for a couple of reasons. I'll start with 4. Kevin Durant's trade request. The Nets start out 500-ish through the first 25 games. You don't think teams are going to be calling and try to get a feel for the temperature there? Kyrie's in the final year of his contract there now. He had to opt in because there wasn't the teams that had the cap space weren't going to get him. The Lakers conceivably, whether it's from a leverage point or reality, however you want to slice it, make a lot more sense. You got Steve Nash. Like, I don't know. I would have loved to have been a coaster in the middle of that conference, whatever you want to call it, sit down with Durant, Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, Steve Nash. Like how are you going to coach the guy that, reportedly wanted you and your GM let go and never publicly denied it, by the way.
Right. Yeah. He's on Twitter talking to us like,
never denied it.
Weird.
And we'll see, what happens on media day and not, but then you've also got Ben Simmons, who's coming off of back surgery, missed all of last year. What are you getting from him? On 2K, they have a great trio, but I don't know what that means on the court. I think they have a shot, but the Nets also, their front court worries me a little bit. Nick Claxton's a nice player, but you got to have more depth there. And I don't think Nick Claxton is stopping Joel Embiid. Not to say that anybody really is, but size-wise, it's like it's like watching one guy who's been to the buffet and one guy who's been on an Atkins diet. Two different things here.
So that's interesting. So, okay. I need to know your opinion. And obviously this is your opinion. If the Lakers are to send the 2 picks out, which team do you think they should send the picks to? And what do you think the returning package should be, in your opinion?
Is it a fight for those 2 picks if the Lakers put them up for sale?
To answer Ricky's question first, because I think that's simpler. Yeah, I think teams would be gunning for those picks because you're looking at that point, LeBron, you would think is probably out of basketball by 2029, 2027, let alone with the Lakers, unless Tom Brady. Anthony Davis, who knows where he'll be at that point.
Chicago. There you go. Bulls fans been asking for him for years. So there you go.
The other, Kwame, if I had a pick of the trades, I mean, I've said this and other people too around the league. If the Pacers are, sorry, that was a work message. If the Pacers are, if the Pacers are deciding, let's say right now between the Utah trade talks and the Pacers trade talks, I think it's a no-brainer for the Pacers trade talks. But it seems like those have stalled to this point, so we'll have to see.
That's fair.
It's so lovely to know that the Lakers are planning for the distant future. And I think that's also a part in the frustration that the fan base has, Michael. It's just the having LeBron James in the twilight of his career, right? Knowing now, obviously you are well sourced. It's been reported multiple times that folks are interested in both of those picks, right? To come up off Russell Westbrook and also provide assets back to the Lakers. Is there, simply put, I asked Jovan this as well. What the hell are they holding on to those picks for, if not to be used in this era of Lakers basketball? Is it truly for a rebuild down the road?
Here's you know what, Rick? I don't think it's for a quote-unquote rebuild down the road. Let's just say hypothetically, you keep Westbrook and you let his contract come off the books. If you do that and you try to go and get Kyrie or bring in free agents, right? Then you have those picks that you could flip to get a player maybe down the line that comes out in the market that's better than Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. By the way, they could try to sign Miles Turner in free agency this summer. There are different avenues there. This is a game of, I feel like this is somewhat a game of chess, not checkers, if you're thinking that far. But do you sacrifice a year of LeBron now and AD? That's the caveat there. You also got to look at it as how much better would they be realistically in the West with Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. I think that's the better of the two packages between Utah and the Pacers. I think that makes them more competitive now, but does that make them up there with the Warriors? Does that make them up there with the Suns? Does that make them up there, with the healthy Denver Nuggets team with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr.? That's a big if, but I'm just saying. The Dallas Mavericks, I know they lost Jalen Brunson, but they upgraded the front court on paper with Christian Wood, who should be on his best behavior and playing his best basketball in a contract year. Funny how that works, right?
Yeah, always.
They get JaVale McGee, who I think, JaVale McGee got a bad rap as being like the Shaq and a Fool guy, but JaVale McGee's been a good player.
Yeah.
And I think that, winning the championship with the Lakers and going on to other teams and playing on playoff teams has helped his stock too. So I think that's kind of the game you have to think about a little bit. And eventually, this is the twilight of LeBron's career. I don't know how many more years he wants to play. So you're debating all those things, but I think the bigger frustration for Laker fans is that guys ended up leaving like Caruso, JaVale McGee, guys that were part of that core when they did win in the bubble that were never really replaced, quite frankly. And I think that was as big of an issue. And then, you trade Kuzma, you trade KCP as part of the Westbrook trade. You get a star, quote unquote, you add to the big three, but Russell Westbrook's skill set does not mesh well with LeBron and AD. Westbrook does not play off the ball, and I don't care who you are. When you play with LeBron, you're going to play off the ball. I know it worked with Miami for a little, but we know how much they struggled in the very, very beginning of that big three. It took a lot of time, and honestly, at least like half a season.
Yeah.
The Lakers had that last year, and it didn't net a lot of good results. And you got Anthony Davis playing 2K, the video game, and he's literally getting injured during a video game.
Insane.
I thought that was fake. I honestly thought it was fake, and I had to watch a few. I was like, no, he's really playing this, and he watched himself get hurt in the game. I know that sucks. I know that he feels some type of way about that. Ronnie 2K definitely got a nice text message or email back then. So
I'm sure.
Mike, so I want to twist it back to Brooklyn real quick, because I agree. They're going to be one of the most, if not the most followed team as far as the development, the health, the success, the failures, everything, the making of a soap opera, right? NBA is one of the greatest soap operas in sports. Where do you see that team currently constructed, right? Obviously, it depends on the shoulders of Kevin Durant and his health, Kyrie Irving and his availability. But with the Ben Simmons addition, which we have not seen this trio together take the floor, what is kind of the sense in Brooklyn, in your backyard, about the team? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is everyone just like, I don't know what to feel right now?
I mean, they think they can compete. I think they internally, the Nets think that they can compete for a title, which in theory you should when you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons on paper. Joe Harris coming back healthy. I think is huge for them. Seth Curry coming back healthy, I think is huge for them. Bigger question with those two guys is, could one of those guys be flipped for a front court piece at some point before the trade deadline? That's something I'm keeping an eye on.
Okay.
Because I think the Nets have a lot of shooting, and you need that around Ben Simmons, but they lack front court depth and pieces, in my opinion. You've got to supplement that at a certain point. You know, I know in the past they've gone in the buyout market. They've gotten Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and all these guys, and those are short-term stopgaps. At some point, you got to fix it. Markieff Morris is going there on a non-guaranteed deal. That should tell you something in itself. So to me, I think that's more what you got to look for. And really, Steve Nash is like the X factor here in a sense of his relationship with KD and Kyrie. And I think for the Nets, what's interesting here about this whole thing, whether you thought Kenny Atkinson was the right guy to coach that team or not, Kenny Atkinson got the most out of a Nets team.
Amen.
The 6th seed that had no business being there.
Yep.
And he got the most out of a Nets team that was missing, you know, Kyrie for a large stretch in his first year there when Durant was out. And I think what's interesting is they go with Nash, a first-year head coach, with a team with championship expectations. And in Brooklyn in particular, they saw what happened with that once before with Jason Kidd. And they do it again.
Oh, God.
And they get Steve Nash.
Yeah.
They did
Good
just
point.
like, give me the former Hall of Fame point guard, starting head coach.
And you do the same thing again. And it's like, Steve Nash is a great guy. Really, you know, but like the other thing I think people don't think about is the first year he was there, you got Mike D'Antoni on one side and Ime Udoka on the other. Ime Udoka turned out to be a pretty good coach. Mike D'Antoni was like a decade ahead of the NBA as far as, you know, let's go, you know, looking like you got the little Mr. Pringles going on, but at the same time, like my Paisan was ahead of the time. Like you should go to the Hall of Fame just for that, let alone, you know, the Suns era. But now you look at it and it's just a different vibe. The whole culture changed there. And I think, you know, Sean Marks really made it a point after the media day availability, the end of season media availability. He's like, Mike, we got to get the culture back. You know, we've got to get it back, you know. And he was I joke, like I did it on the Late Night Lake Show on Twitter Spaces, but now you could see my face doing it. But it's like, you know, you got Sean Marks talking to like all these teams in the Grizzlies, like, you know, oh, we're not going to get Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, John Morant. You know, we'll give you a couple of coupons to Trader Joe's and you know, whatever. It's like the pawn shop, you know, best I could do kind of meme and things like that. And you got Sean Marks, but I'm like, mate, I can't do it. You're throwing a bunch of scallywags. I can't do it, mate.
That is a spot.
So it was never going to pan out like that. You know, what else? They're trying obviously to do everything they can to make Ben Simmons comfortable. They keep Patty Mills. It's, you know, his fellow countryman and his guy. Patty Mills is a culture guy, San Antonio Spurs bred kind of guy. So we'll see. But I think if you're asking me my personal prediction, I think they're somewhere in that 4 range. I really do. I think Philadelphia getting PJ Tucker was huge. And Harden coming back healthier and looking like he's in better shape. You know, he's motivated because he looked it's hard to say a guy's cooked when he was still technically an all-star, but man, did he look like he was hurt last year and a step slow and just, you know. By the way, the Nets got plagued because Harden hurt his hamstring. Kyrie fell on Giannis's foot, and Durant had a shoe size one too big against the Bucks. They win that. Mike Budenholzer is fired. I think Rick Carlisle becomes the coach. And again, it's a whole different universe we're in. And the Nets are going to the finals when everybody was scared, you know, poop emoji of them. So
it's amazing what happens in a calendar year. Just superstars out left and right got flipped that season. There was the boogeyman offseason a couple years ago of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Then they went and added James Harden. Everyone was like, well, get us Russell Westbrook. We need to fight evil with evil now. Man. It's you know, and here we are today.
And anybody won. and I've said this too, anybody who was like, you know, looking back, oh man, the Nets, they shouldn't have went all in on Harden. They gave up too much. Like, stop. Maybe cap. Like, go to Lids with that and buy like a 7 3/4 fitted. Like,
7 3/4.
That is a rock, bro.
10 out of 10. Even Jared, I asked Jared Allen straight up. Google it. It's in a HoopsHype store I did with him. And it's like, Jared, would you have done the trade? Oh, 10 out of 10. Exactly. The only guy is saying it. Karis LeVert, like, nice player, didn't hurt. Yeah, the draft picks, it's a little tough. But when you get all those guys, you're expecting, greatness. You're expecting a championship. Heck, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving said it themselves. It's been an underwhelming tenure. They would admit that if you asked them honestly. If they didn't, there'd be something wrong with that. But the Harden thing, like, even then, you still got Simmons and you got multiple firsts from the Sixers, like, back. It wasn't like, it's not always as like black and white, just because like Harden left. They got Curry too. The Drummond was a valuable piece. Like, you always got to like do that and go in for that move. That's like somebody saying, well, the Lakers never should have traded Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, and Josh Hart for Anthony Davis. Like, okay, well, then you don't win a title. I don't care or not. You won. Like, nobody's ever going to say, oh, that was a bad trade. They won a title. Unless like the Pelicans do. What are we talking? Again, like NBA, I don't do this. I don't tweet like, NBA Twitter all the time. Right. But like, man, because it's like a cesspool sometimes. And I do like NBA Twitter. I do. I find the memes funny and like, sort of like executives and they, we all have like our group chats and stuff, but I don't publicly speak on it. But like, man, some of these wild takes are just like, dude, come on. Like the John Wall meme, like, bruh.
Right.
Like that.
So I do have a question for you. With a lot of the player movement that's happened in recent years, and it seems like people asking out of their deals earlier and earlier than ever, I'm going to tie it back to our beloved Lakers. You think they're holding out on a star that may feel disgruntled and they have the draft capital? And I mean, they're still sitting on an expiring deal. Could that be an option? I mean, I don't know who's going to really be asking out or who's in that position, but I guess you never know, right? So is that?
I mean, Kwame, here's the thing: the Lakers are going to get linked to every guy in creation. They always do, just because they're the Lakers. The Knicks get linked to every guy too, by the way. Like, anybody in particular?
I don't see it, Mike. Everybody's got a duo.
I'm going through like playoff teams. I'm literally like going through the playoff teams in my head. I don't see it. I think the guy people are going to look at around the league that are wishfully hoping is going to become available is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And again, I talked about it with you guys before. The Oklahoma City Thunder would be in no rush to move him at all. They would have all the leverage. But Kwame, to your original point about guys, getting traded after, it's like, secure the bag and then go. Like LaMelo Ball, like everybody's like, oh, well, when's he going to put pressure on the Hornets? And Well, guess what? The Hornets have the leverage because they can give him the most money. And unless you're going to take a 1-year qualifying offer and lose the max money that you would get, you're not going to do that now. You do it later on. Secure the bag and then go. Like that's always how it is. Same, like I think for teams now, almost like giving a guy a max is a way to cover yourself to get as many assets down the line.
That's a really good point.
A guy makes a big stink about it. You saw it with Ben Simmons. You saw it with James Harden. Donovan Mitchell's gone. Like now, I think also some of that was Utah being like, we peaked, but it's a little give and take on both. It's always get the bag and then you can get moved later. That is like the new thought process among players in the league. And anybody that tells you otherwise, get out of here.
Are you concerned with the point of players asking out after getting the bag? This next CBA, everybody talks about, the next CBA, like the boogeyman. Just what is your sense on what we're about to go into as far as the next collective bargaining agreement? You think a lockout could happen? Could it get ugly?
Yeah, when I think about the salary cap going up, I think of like Joe, all the way up. It's just like that. It's going through I think it's gonna like the fact that Damian Lillard is a great player. The fact that Damian Lillard, when he's like in his mid-30s, is going to make $60-something million.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like A-Rod on the Texas Rangers. And A-Rod was in his prime. Like, it's getting to a point, and I've had this conversation with executives, where at some point, I think the tide will shift. And what I mean by that is executives are going to go, we're not going to pay you. We're going to move you because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make long-term sense. At some point, just like all these teams that always match an offer sheet for somebody just because, oh, you don't want to lose the asset, either teams are going to start learning more, move the guy a year before or the year he is a restricted free agent, than matching like you saw like Portland when they matched like Allen Crabbe with the Nets.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah,
Crazy.
Right.
This is a crazy
Okay.
time.
Okay. How'd that work out? You traded him for what? I think like Andrew Nicholson. Yeah, to trade him just to get him off the team then at that point. Like, there's going to be a leveling of that at a certain point. Like, the market, it's just wild. It's almost like, why am I blanking on it? The Leonardo DiCaprio, Wolf of Wall Street. Like, at a certain point, the market's got to hit. Like,
Right. It's got to flip. I've looked at this the entire time as a pendulum. Like, as it goes more towards, as everyone talks about, player empowerment, player movement. Get your bag, figure it out. You are making this money for a very short amount of time. Get as much as you can, and we all see it. And I think the Harden, Ben Simmons, and now KD and Kyrie, or not necessarily Kyrie, but KD, asking for trades.
mm-hmm.
Are you concerned at all that the owners might get to a point where they want this set up in a way that could cause a lockout or some very ugly conversations coming up when the CBA gets discussed?
Yes, and I apologize. Just give me 1 sec. I have to answer this real quick. I always I'm sure it's fun for you guys. Like, if an exec or somebody hits me up, I just like scroll.
Oh, okay. Eastern or Western Conference, Mike? Start diving in a little bit.
West
Conference,
which I know for you guys is like,
yeah, I'd say that's pretty interesting over there.
But
his initials district attorney at all?
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just really quick before we get into a little bit of the general NBA topics here and get you out. Are you concerned about a potential lockout in the future?
I know there's a lot of talk about it, but
is the money too good right now for everybody?
I kind of feel like, how are you going to both? You know what? I don't think. Could I see the scenario? I can understand the plausible scenario why people talk about it, but like sometimes when things are going this well, you would end up hurting yourself by going into a lockout, I think. And I mean, on the flip side, everybody thought Donovan Mitchell was going to the Knicks, and that didn't happen. So, ask me that question as we get closer, and I hear more from people at the PA and executives and agents and stuff. All I know is they're all like, this cap is going up all the way. Like, everybody's in lockstep on that from what I talked to. So,
okay.
Like, we'll see.
Very exciting news for a team that is currently owned by what folks like to call is a mom and pop organization. The lower on the list of folks that are willing to, spend. You talked about Alex Caruso. You talked about JaVale McGee. By the wayside to, try to figure out something that might be a little bit more cost efficient. So, Mike, that was all fantastic information that you just dropped on us. We've had folks ask questions throughout our episode, and appreciate you guys sending those in. Real quick, just want to hit you with some rapid fire questions, general NBA questions. So, first of all, I would like to ask you, whose offseason did you like the most? And whose offseason out of the contenders, the teams that have championship aspirations, that you were scratching your head like, are you even trying?
Okay. I think, first off, I like what the Celtics did on paper, getting Malcolm Brogdon and Danilo Gallinari before Gallinari got hurt. Killed my Paisan. Probably the best Italian basketball player, by the way. I mean, not that there was a lot of competition with Bargnani, But
that's a title to own, though.
We're claiming Paolo Banchero. I don't know if people know that.
He claims it himself.
He claims it, right.
Yeah, I know, but I we really we claiming that for sure. Like,
there we go.
We got Paolo, like between Eurobasket, the World Cup in soccer, Paolo Banchero, Italy, Frank Isola, me. We're here, baby.
There we go.
In a good spot right now.
But I think I liked what Boston did at first on paper, getting Brogdon. I don't think they gave up too much to get him. I like the Gallo signing before he get hurt. Now they're gonna have to figure it out. Maybe he comes back at the end, but I doubt it. I loved what Cleveland did. I think Donovan Mitchell fit in that core. I've spoken at length about it. You got 3 years to contend with a really good young core. I think underrated is the return of Ricky Rubio to them, who helped Kevin Love get back, the fountain of youth, and he helped Donovan Mitchell develop when he was younger. Ricky Rubio is a good veteran. Wow. Ricky Rubio is a good veteran mentor and a good player when he's healthy. I think halfway through the year, like January, February, you could see Rubio back. I talked about it on the HoopsHype podcast with Chris Fedor, who covers the Cavaliers. He does a good job there. And even Robin Lopez, nice backup center. Let's see. Let's go look at the teams. I think I touched on this for you guys, but I like what Philly did. Harden, getting Harden on a short-term contract, I think is a win for everybody. I think PJ Tucker going there was a steal and underrated. And you weaken the Miami Heat, who have not replaced him yet in that position.
Remember when Tyler Hero was Salt Lake City bound for?
I never believed that. I'm sorry. That was never enough. The Heat, they are what they are. Unless you were trading Bam Adebayo or something, Tyler Hero was not moving the needle. Sorry, it just wasn't enough.
And Duncan Robinson in 2 firsts, that wasn't doing it back.
Duncan couldn't even see the court last season.
He couldn't see us.
Couldn't see the court. Max Strus took all his minutes.
Nastiness. As far as folks you didn't like, then the Heat kind of stood pat. I'm not really familiar what they did this offseason.
But one other one, shout out to the Jazz for going for a rebuild now, because that was capped. The Gobert Mitchell ceiling peaked, rebuild and go all in. I like it. I don't like going kind of halfway. If you're going to do it. And Sam Hinkie was the first one to really do that and kind of pave the way. And I know we're probably never going to hear from him again for a lot of reasons because of the whole tanking thing. But Sam Hinkie was ahead of his time too.
Oh yeah.
Teams that ruffled my feathers. I think first and foremost, this is not a team thing necessarily. The Miles Bridges situation.
Oh man.
From a personal perspective, is disheartening. And from a money perspective for him, man,
that couldn't have been blown.
Let alone the fact that Charlotte, was banking on him to come back. And, now you got to wait and see with the whole legal process. That just changes the whole dynamic of stuff there in Charlotte. Not to say that they were going to be that much better with or without him, but it changes things. Miami not being able to replace PJ Tucker, I think, is going to bite them until they try to do something maybe start of the season or middle of, I don't know, right before the deadline. I'm looking through these teams. Okay. Minnesota improved on paper this season. But man, did they give up the house and their mother and their sister for Rudy Gobert. And maybe you don't like your mother and your sister. Maybe you don't like your in-laws. But that's a lot. And I was just man, any executive I talked to, that screwed up the whole trade market.
Cooked the market.
Screwed up the trade market for Kevin Durant. The Donovan Mitchell trade talks took longer because of that, because now Utah was Donovan Mitchell is to many people better than Gobert. So if you had this for Gobert, you got to come here now. And they, Cleveland did ultimately, but man, other than that.
And indirectly, Mike,
do I get to say the Suns? I get to say the Suns because of the Robert Sarver thing and the DeAndre Ayton?
Absolutely.
the DeAndre Ayton, like, oh, we're not going to pay him a max. Well, Indiana came and paid him a max, and they matched it in 2 seconds. It's like, we really need to go through all that.
What was all that for? Exactly.
And then, like, because you know it's going to ruffle feathers with Ayton, and they're going to have to patch. He's going to have to patch things up with Monty Williams, and because he didn't get extended, beforehand, he wasn't his best last season. I mean, he played nice, but I think like chemistry wise, things could have been better if that extension was done. And the Sarver thing now, it's like, okay, how does this at all affect the Suns, if anything? I don't know if it really is going to move the needle. I still think they got a good team, but I just think like that cloud that was hovering over them last season, let alone now, like now that it's done, it's like now it's almost like, all right, so where's the line between Robert Sarver and Donald Sterling now? And that's going to be like the next topic. And it's just like, if you're the Suns, man, you're just trying to win. Like you got Chris Paul, this poor guy goes on a really good team, trying to win a ring. You get Devin Booker, it's just like unfortunate. So I guess like that would be, those are the teams I talk about as far as like, I don't know if I call them quote unquote losers, but they ruffled my feathers. We'll go with that.
That's great. Hey, last question, Mike, before we get you out of here. Thank you so much for your time, man. And this one makes me a little nervous because I'm obviously this is a Lakers broadcast, but Mr. LeBron James is, in the twilight of his career that we mentioned multiple times. He's signed an extension with the Lakers, but that still does not stop the rumblings, the rumors, the just posturing that he could potentially leave and go play with his son. Hell, he says it himself. That's his plan. To go play with his son, right? You in your Cleveland Cavaliers, Utah Jazz behind the scenes breakdown for HoopsHype, which once again, y'all go check that out. A lot of good tidbits. Y'all slid through the LeBron Cleveland conversation. So just wanted you to kind of recap how that discussion went.
That was a lot of Chris. Yeah, Chris Fedor came on the podcast, and the transcript is up. The podcast is up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But yeah, Chris Fedor, I asked him because I felt that was as much a good question for him because he knows as much Cleveland's appetite for that. And his response was, well, Cleveland would welcome LeBron back under certain conditions, but not giving him the keys to the franchise like in years past when they asked him to be a savior, because they've got a good young core and they wouldn't need him to quote unquote be that. That's not usually how it works with LeBron. He usually has a lot of power. Look at the Lakers, the clutch Lakers. So I know a lot of people make that
clutch Lakers.
I mean, a lot of people make the joke, but you look at a lot of the signings they had.
That's true.
They're either from the Midwest, a Rob Pelinka disciple, or they are an influence of Clutch Sports. That's where we're at right now. Just Chicago and Clutch is how the
has Austin Reeves replaced Alex Caruso as like the I don't know. I don't want to say the Lakers fan
fan favorite. Yeah,
absolutely, 1,000%.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna burn the building down the day that he is no longer a Laker. That's when Crypto Arena will actually burn.
Oh, I did say this on a Lakers pod with Jovan Buha that I did with HoopsHype, but Lakers coaches, they want more like Austin Reeves. They think like that's the type of role player guy that they need to help take the next step around AD and LeBron, because he knows his role. He could shoot the ball. He plays defense. He moves without the ball. And he doesn't complain or say anything. And I did touch on it for those who missed it. I'll reiterate it here. Austin Reeves would like to stay with the Lakers. They'd like to keep him. I'm just curious if the money's going to come to fruition or if somebody comes out of nowhere. Big important season upcoming for Austin Reeves. And who would have thought that coming out of his entry into the Lakers when he first arrived? Nobody in their wildest dreams would have thought that. But that's why they play the games in reality and not on 2K sim mode.
It's true.
Everything that we're hearing out of Lakers offseason is that Austin Reeves is really ready to take the next step in his game. And I think and I'm sure Mike, I'd love to get your opinion. I think Austin's always going to be a role player, a high-level role player. People aren't going to ask for him to start dropping 20, 25 a game anytime soon. But Darvin Ham has a prototype of supporting cast that he wants on the roster. You saw the Patrick Beverly edition, and that is, again, 1 for 1. Like, I need dogs. There goes your first dog right there. Yep. And I think if they can kind of foster that environment, that mentality, that, it's a bunch. The Lakers looked like that during their championship season. People forget and they blame the bubble for the reason why they won the championship. But the Lakers were the best damn defense in the league. Looking at it, all year.
I feel like you got to duck when you say this. So, like, shout out to like Frank Vogel. He got to get a little credit for that year.
True.
You remember like when George Bush was dodging the shoe?
You're right. The shoe. But
that's what it was. Like Frank Vogel, and God bless. Like the guy could replace Joe Gatto on Impractical Jokers tomorrow. It's like we all have like a twin. We all have like a twin out there. Yep. That's it. But yeah, I just man, that team. They had dogs.
Must be a dog that Darvin Ham wants. Can he fit the dog role at this stage in his career? Russell, middle name Westbrook.
I think Pat Bev is more that dog, to be honest. And I would say that one of the reasons Lakers also got Pat Bev, because even though he'll be a free agent, you can retain him, and I don't think as long as you're keeping LeBron and AD, I don't think Pat Bev is a guy that's just like a one-year guy there. I think they'd like to keep him past this year because of the intangibles and the defense and what he brings. And when he is on, he could actually shoot three-pointers. Yeah. Like high 30s. I don't think that gets talked about much, but
low attempts, but he's hitting when he needs to shoot. He's hitting. He said that in his interview too. Like they were saying, like, "Oh, you're a pretty good shooter." He's like, "Yeah, I am. I just do what I need to do for the team that day." So as long as he doesn't get hit with the Lakers 3-point shooting curse, where everybody's an awful 3-point shooter once they put on the purple and gold, that should be encouraging. So you believe, right? Pat Bev, as we wrap up the show, Pat Bev is kind of potentially a longer term play based on how the Lakers want to, put the identity of the team together.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. That works for me. And that wraps up our questions from the audience today. Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype, thank you so much, my man, for dropping by the Late Night Lake Show podcast. Again, we already know you are a friend of the show to our NBA spaces that seems like you like to dabble in as far as the Twitter craziness. So we appreciate you always dropping by there, and we appreciate you stopping by the show here. Hope you had a good time, man.
Yes, sir.
Lakers spaces is always fun. Spaces is cool too. Nick Spaces is wild.
What's the sense on Nick Spaces? Really quick. Like, what's the biggest difference? Are they angrier than Lakers fans? Are they?
It's funny. I never feel. One time, some guy on Nick Spaces is like, "And why would they tell you? Why would they tell you instead of who?" And I was like, "Bro, you don't know who I know. Everybody tells different people different things." My guy, I'm like, "Who are you?"
Right.
That's a better question.
I've been doing this for like over a decade, brother. Like, who are you? Like, they just like sometimes like just like that one guy like got me going that night. I was like, bro, I kind of like I've always tried to refrain from like going back at somebody, but like on air when it's like, no, bro, like I got a microphone now. I could say like we're going back like this. It's not like written or can get like out of context. It's like if you're gonna poke the bear. Like, you better watch yourself. But Nick Spaces is like eagerly anticipating. Like when the Donovan Mitchell stuff was going down, there was like Nick Spaces popping up every night. Like, oh, it's getting closer. It's this, it's that. And I remember they were asking me like, what I thought, like, and I said the truth and I maintained it. I thought I would be shocked if they didn't get him. I stand by that. They should have got him. They had all the assets. But, like the little things become the big things when you haggle over little stuff. I mean, I know like it's like, the pick protections are like a big deal, but stuff like Quentin Grimes, just come on. But yeah, I mean, Net Spaces is interesting. I think Net Spaces is everything is like pro Kyrie. They love Kyrie.
Okay.
No matter what. Even when he was like not eligible to play because they're not taking the vaccine. Lakers Spaces, I think it's fun. Like I like Jackson.
Shout out to Jackson.
Man. Shout out Jackson.
Like everyone's like, Anthony Davis is trash. LeBron James, everybody's trash. The coach got to go. The water boy got to go. Everybody got to go. The guy who schedules the fights, he got to go too. And he just like goes, Palika. And it's just, everybody like, he just like gets me going. Guru's funny because Guru always seems like he's like sipping scotch in like his backyard or something or on the porch. And it's just chill and it's like, guys, I'm gonna mute this. We're not gonna do. He's got like this voice and tone. It's funny. Stace, she seems like a sweetheart, and I think she's knowledgeable. It's just funny. They get me going when I start like when we were doing like the I don't know how we ended up getting on like the Avery Johnson and the Brett Brown and like all those Deshaun. I mean, you saw the Deshaun Marks impression, but they bring out definitely my top comedic value, but they get like good insight.
There we go.
They're fun. Like they're the most lit spaces I've seen on Twitter. The late night late show spaces like always seems to be filled. Like I've been in the room where it's like over 1,000 people, 2,000. From what I've seen from a team specific, type of spaces, like, yeah.
Yeah, we do our thing, man. Shout out to the brand.
Shout out to the brand. Shout out Guru. Shout out Stay. Shout out everybody that helps make Late Night Lake Show what it is. And shout out you, Mike, for giving us this good content for an hour straight, my man. And thank you for being a friend of the show. Real quick before we get you out of here, obviously HoopsHype is the home for your content. But where can the people follow you and when you pop up in different spaces?
Sure. I mean, just honestly, Twitter at Mike A. Scotto. I see all the tweets. I see everything. Sometimes you get a DM from me. Once in a while, if you ask me a question that you really just want to know an answer to, if it's something I'm going to report on, I might just wait and let you get it then. If you ask me like a cap question or something, like I'll probably tell you ask a cap guy. But some things like I do answer and whatnot. I do stay away from trolls. If you got something nice to say, I'll probably reach out to you in a DM and say thank you. I appreciate it. A lot of people, for the most part, people are right. But, just honestly like Twitter, at Mike A. Scotto. Mike A. SCOTTO, like the lotto. Just do it. It's a friendly place. Put the notifications on and, tap in when I go on spaces like I do here. I enjoy the engagement of it, like with the fans and with you guys. And to me, it's the same thing as going on like NBA TV or anything like that.
Love it.
It's the same stuff as long as everybody keeps it, respectful.
Yep.
For the most part, people do. I just find it funny in particular when like Jackson pops off on your spaces and who's the California guy? Mike. There's another Mike
from the OC.
Mike from the OC.
He's like, I remember when they were in short shorts and the Lakers were all about that. It's like I wasn't, a twinkle in my dad's, what, like I wasn't around. I'm only 33, but it's interesting to hear those perspectives and stuff. And it's always like fun and it's a good time. But yeah, late night spaces, especially because like on the East Coast, it's late. Like for us, it's probably like 1, 2 in the morning. That's when you get like anything goes at that point.
Right.
And I honestly swear to God, truth, we're in Chicago here. And when I started this and trying to figure out like the name of the podcast is like, well, when Lakers games get off, it's 12:30, right? And if we're going to record post-game stuff, it's late night. So that is how the brand has developed into what you now are a great friend of the show of. And again, we appreciate everything that you do and all the help that you provide, not just to Late Night Lake Show and the Lakers community, but the NBA community. Mike, keep doing what you do, brother. We appreciate you.
Sir.
Appreciate that, guys. My pleasure joining both of you. You guys have a great night and enjoy.
That's right.
Appreciate
All
you,
right, fellas. All right, everybody. That'll do it for this episode of the Late Night Lake Show podcast. Make sure if you're not already, click that subscribe button, turn on notifications, follow us, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate you guys for tapping in with us. Thank you guys for your questions. We'll see you next time on the timeline. For Kwame, for Mike, it's Ricky. Late Night Lake Show. We out. All right. Appreciate you, Mike. Appreciate it.